Getting this thing started just a little bit early for comma checks and such. Militaristics, any issue hearing me right now? All right. So got good sound check. Good. Hope everybody is enjoying their Memorial Day weekend. I'm enjoying the time off. I'm going to be on the road for a couple weeks, starting on Wednesday. So good to spend a little bit of time back at the casa. All right, all right. 5 minutes till we go live. Well, we're live right now, but whatever. Got a bunch of questions that we'll be covering today. I think should be a good couple hours of content. Actually, I'm not kidding. A lot of questions. I switched my workstation to the dining room table to try to give you guys some better lighting too. My normal laptop setup has got really crappy lighting, and it's absolutely gorgeous today in the Pacific Northwest. Big white poofy clouds and blue skies, and it's pretty gorgeous. I think I'm going to take Fur Missile down to the lake and throw her in it once we're done with this. Faux show. All right, we got 11 in here. I guess we can kick it off 3 minutes early. Doesn't hurt my feelings none. So the way this works for you guys that are not patrons of mine, I do Q&A. Try to do it every Sunday. Work dependent, of course. And this is kind of my opportunity to give back to the guys and gals potentially that support me with on Patreon. So I try to give them a little bit of exclusive content. Fortunately for you guys, my patrons are so generous at wanting the content to get out there to help out those that need it, that they have decided to open up the Memorial Day weekend Q&A to the public so that you guys can kind of see a little bit of the format of what's going on here, whatever. So essentially, my upper tier patrons, they have a chat in my or a post area on my Patreon page, and and they rate questions in there, and I answer those questions first, and then my army of $10 and above peeps, they flood their room with questions, and I answer those second, and that normally takes hour and a half, depending on how many questions are asked or whatever. And then there's a live chat here, and so anybody else that's in on the chat live in real time, they can ask questions on the text, and I go down those and finish those last. Normally do between hour and a half to 3 hours of content, depending on how good the back and forth is with the people that are actually engaged uh, engaged in the YouTube chat there. So that's kind of the format. Without further ado, I guess we'll go ahead and get to the questions. It looks like people are starting to pile in here now. So Chris Miranda has the first question of the day. Chris's question he posted yesterday was, did I do anything to lighten up my 416, or should Chris just go to the gym and get stronger? The answer to that is there's not a whole lot that you can do to lighten up a 416. The Geisley rail actually adds weight to the 416 weapon system over the Heckler and Koch issued 1913 rails. So you know, something that I saw done is to actually take a grinder and grind off all the 1913 rail sections that you don't need, and then spray paint the gun. So you're going to shave a little bit of weight there, not much, and you're not really going to mess with the structural integrity of the HK rail. Obviously, if it's a government M27 or something, the United States Marine Corps is not going to be very fond of you taking a grinder to your weapon. But if you have your gun set up the way that you want it, and it's you have that leeway. Once you have all your gear configured optimally for your body type and shooting style, all those other 1913 rail sections are wasted. There's wasted room, which is the whole reason why MLOC and Keymod and all that other bullshit came out there, because we had all this rail space, and the majority of it was completely unused. So grinding that shit off there is going to shave you a little bit of weight. Other than that, man, there's no free lunch. If you want Nazi Wonder Gun that you don't have to oil and runs forever, then it's going to cost you, and that cost is going to be a really snappy, sharp recoil impulse and heavier weight. It is what it is. Speaking of jarheads, my lovely buddy Lou, who's downrange right now. Lou the Marine asks, what should civilian and LE dudes look for in a set of dual tubes? Maybe break down in the differences, pluses or minuses, to the Mod 3, the DT-NVG, and the Sentinels. Honestly, I do not have any experience with the DT-NVG. I think the differences are pretty obvious in those three systems. So the Mod 3, from what I can glean, allows you to remove one tube and use it as a pocket scope or a handheld monocular. There are people that potentially have a need for that type of capability. Reasons why you would want to have a pocket scope / monocular. You can attach to a spotting scope for night surveillance. Low visibility applications. You can carry a pocket scope around your neck and kind of peek into shadows and things like that. When you're not wearing a full up helmet or even a crown of thorns or a skull crusher or whatever you want to call it. to hold nods on there. You know, you can have them in tucked away and just kind of pull out, look at stuff real quick, scan and put it away. That's more for like close target recce stuff in an urban environment. Um, you know, if you're like going to go do a drug warrant or whatever, and you're trying to look at potential, you know, is that gate got a chain on it or doesn't it? And you're walking down the street and you just got to take a quick look, you know, down between two houses or whatever, and get a really quick assessment of what's going on. You can bring it up, look, okay, yeah, there's a chain on there with a lock, you know, and then tuck your shit away and walk, keep on walking. DTNVG is going to give you your PVS 31 Alpha style swing up with your tubes. I've never had a set of nods that could do that. That's not really true. I had a set of PVS 15s once, but I don't have a need for that. We talked about that on a previous Q&A. I've got because I live the aviator ball detent life. My nods go up and down, up and down, up and down, really, really quickly. I have no need to cock my things up here where I'm doing this and looking around, and I've got one up and one down and all this other shit. I'm either dual tube because I'm trying to look through nods, or they're up and out of the way, and that's accomplished with a quick push of my thumb and a rotation up, and it locks in. And I'm talking about Sentinels when I do that. Sentinels can be worn with dovetail, or they can be worn with aviator ball detent. Um, we designed those that way. So they're, you know, they can use whatever mounting system you want to use. I prefer using them with the aviator's ball detent, although they do stick out a little bit. Their ball detent is an adapter, so it does add a little bit of distance out away from my helmet more than other systems like the PVS 23 Fusion goggles or ground panoramic night vision goggles that are all aviators ball detent. So you basically are going to have to decide, you know, what you want your nods to do and how you're used to employing your nods or how you want to employ your nods, and then you get a housing that best supports, you know, your lifestyle or, you know, whatever you want to call it. So as of right now, I ain't found nothing out there as far as the secondary market, or, you know, housings that you can drop tubes in and kind of, you know, Frankenstein your own nods together that are better than the Sentinels. Um, I really like them, but, you know, I'm kind of partial. Um, Next question, Matthias. What's your opinion on belt kit LBE, LCE? LBE, load bearing equipment, LCE, load carrying equipment, interchangeable terms. Is it still relevant? Yes, belt kit is absolutely still relevant. That being said, due to rubbing and chafing around the waist, I wore my belt kit up very, very high. So my Alice load bearing gear was worn up under my arms and buckled in the front. So it actually looked a whole lot like a split front chest rig. I wore my ammo pouches just below my name tape on my BDUs, and that kept all of that pistol belt and canteens and everything from rubbing on my waist. It also kept from interfering with the waist belt on a pack when I was running heavier loads. I think that you know, the jungle is traditionally an environment where people kind of think of the load carrying equipment. You know, the fucking Vietnamese, man, they ran around with Chi-Com chest rigs in the jungle. I hate wearing a chest rack in the jungle. I can't stand it. I'm trying to open everything up. You know, I run with my my BDU blouse open like this to allow venting, and I'll unbuckle my LBE again to keep that from anything that could insulate my body and radiate heat back on myself. I'm trying to open up and vent to allow the maximum amount of off gassing when I'm out there walking around in the jungle. The jungle is by far the worst environment imaginable, especially for dudes that are just, uh, that sweat a lot. And, I mean, even when I was 170 pounds, I still sweat like a whore in church. So, uh, I might have met one guy in my 26 years in the military that could keep up with me in terms of sweat. Uh, so, um, the ability to regulate my temp thermally is extremely important. Uh, the good thing about LBEs is that they can carry a lot of stuff. So if you have to get away from your rucksack, your LBE or LC is going to be able to have a larger, load on your belt kit. The bad part to that is the belt kit itself is extremely heavy. Uh, my belt kit for the jungle weighs as much as a fully loaded plate carrier, but has none of the ballistic protection because that ballistic protection has been replaced with increased ammunition and hydration. So a lot of people are trying to redo the jungle kit with newer materials. The issue is with Hypalon and some of these other materials. They don't have any of the padding properties to reduce hot spots or things like that that the older pouches had. So I've seen some like super ultralight belt kits for the SOCOM jungle load carriage submission. And I looked at a lot of that stuff and I was like, man, if I loaded this with actual magazines and radios and hard pointy pokey objects and like put it on my body, I would have patches of skin missing a couple kilometers into a jungle movement. uh, the Brits and other elements that had really really large heavy belt kit understood the absolute requirement to have padding on the inside. Now that padding again radiates, reflects heat, and all that stuff. See, there's no free lunch. But if it's closed cell, it also provides the benefit of getting your belt kit closer to neutrally buoyant. Which is always a good thing. You want to try to have your belt kit if you're going to be operating in any type of environment where you're going to have to swim or cross rivers or anything like that. You want your belt kit to be completely neutrally buoyant when it's fully loaded, and that requires a good deal of closed cell foam padding to accomplish. Um, John Harris asks about cloud defense systems, flashlights. They're optimized weapon light. Do I have any experience with it? Battery life, anything like that? Short answer is no. I do not put gun lights on my rifles that are not surefire. I haven't. Um, I've used replacement heads, but I've not used full up flashlights from another vendor. Just had no need to. All right, Tom Gorman's asking about classes in California. Yes, I am willing to go to California. I'm planning a class on San Diego later on this year. Tough Products is probably going to host me out there. They're talking to some of the local law enforcement about securing range and time. It's still up in the air, but I will get to California in 2018, Southern California specifically. Logan Young asks, just started wearing corrective lenses when doing hood rat shit. Do I prefer contacts or glasses, and why? All right. First off, I've never worn contacts, so let me add that as a disclaimer. In the 75th Ranger Regiment, you were not authorized to wear contact lenses at all, and that was a field hygiene issue going back into the 90s. Guys getting pink eye and losing a contact and things like that. So that's why the Ranger birth control glasses were a thing. Um, I didn't need to wear glasses back then anyway. Since I have had a need for glasses, I wear prescription eye protection because you got to wear eye pro anyway. So if you have to wear eye pro, you just might as well make it prescription, and you're knocking out two birds with one stone. That way, there's no chance that you're going to get, a contact blown out of your eye, or a piece of sand coming in with rotor wash and catching and getting caught between the lens and your retina, and scratching up your eye and all that shit. You don't have to worry about any of that. I have not always worn the best ballistic eye protection. The Oakleys with the inserts embedded into them did not meet uh, the Army's ballistic eye protection whatever standards, because when they received the impact of the frag, the BB, the whatever, it would actually pop the prescription insert that was embedded in the lens, that would pop it out. That's why the new Oakleys have got an insert that goes in behind, and it has the bridge clip that holds the glasses together. That's also in order to make Oakley compliant with the DoD blast protection, whatever. The M frame, the entire lens was popping off of the frame under impact, which is why they had to start drilling the hole right there in the middle and putting the clip on it. The problem with that setup is if you're out running in an environment like the desert, or flying over the desert, you're looking down at the bleached white sand of Iraq, or wherever, and you can essentially get snowblind from staring at the desert from the open door of a helicopter. So you have to have tinted lenses in. But if you're chasing somebody and they decide they want to roll into a compound or whatever, and you're silly enough to chase them into that compound because they're really, really, really important, then you have to be able to transition into a hard point assault, and you can't ever, 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 ever go into a structure with sunglasses on. You'll get stacked like cordwood at the fucking breach, because you're going from an extremely bright area into a structure that more than likely has no power, because the savages don't run their generators during the day, and the change in lighting condition is dramatic enough for your eyes, and then you add, if you have tinted lenses and you step indoors where it's dark, you're completely blind, and you just get shot in the face and you die. So you have to have an eye pro situation where you can, in 60 seconds or less, sometimes sitting in the door of a helicopter going 80 miles an hour, uh, remove your eye pro and transition from tinted to clear lenses. And if you can't do that with whatever eye pro you're wearing, then you're wearing the wrong eye pro. If you have a job where you're out in a bright environment and you have to go inside rather rapidly, I think there's probably some LE circumstances where that applies as well. The difference is that in LE, there's less fragmentation problems. You're not constantly hanging out next to corners of buildings where the corner of the building is exploding with ricocheting particulate from machine gun fire and things like that. That's just not the normal environment that a cop operates in. But I think most cops think that iPro is important, but between air conditioning in their cars, and other things like that, a cop isn't afraid to remove his sunglasses if he's got to go inside of a house for a domestic or something like that. So different jobs, different roles, a lot of similarities, but you got to understand the why uh, of these different things. Like, why is this important? Why is that important? That's the big part. You can't just say, well, so and so does it this way, and so that has to be the way. Um, Brian Sawyer asks, what was my training or practice regime for building my pistol skills to where they are now? Who would you train with, and what classes would you take to build up pistol skills? Uh, okay, so if we're saying now, I'm assuming that we're not talking about what I've done to get back some of where I was before. Uh, I've gone into an intensive training cycle in the past 2 months since I've been able to get back on the guns, 2-3 months, and I've fired somewhere probably in the neighborhood of 12,000 rounds since the first of the year. Uh, just because I was 8 months off the guns and I couldn't shoot anymore. Obviously, if you're going to be a shooting instructor, you need to be able to fucking shoot, and I couldn't shoot. Um, 8 months without firing a weapon was way too long, and I just couldn't perform. So, but I think the question is geared towards what did I do to become proficient in the first place. I've talked about this before during a previous Q&A. I was fortunate enough that I got to do some training when I was in the military, when I was in the Rangers specifically. I got to train with a bunch of top tier professionals for about a week with a bunch of other NCOs. And I kind of take that like you guys would take going to a carbine class or going to a pistol class. Yes, you're going to see an increase in performance at that class, but you can't make someone a better shooter across the board in 3 days or in 2 days or whatever. Yeah, they're going to be a better shooter than what they were, but they're not going to be a shooter. So what you're doing in this short amount of time that you're an instructor is you're showing someone what right looks like. It is the student's responsibility to pick up what you're putting down and then to go back to their home range and as best as they can mimic and replicate what right looks like until they get right. So in a very short amount of time, I saw the fundamentals executed perfectly to standard. And I took a mental picture of that, and it's easier for me because I have a kind of a photographic memory. So I took these mental pictures of dudes like Pat Mack executing the fundamentals perfectly, and then I went and got a Dillon 650 later on and started pressing out 500 rounds a week, and I shot 500 rounds a week in 2 range sessions, 200 rounds and 300 rounds, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I did that for over 6 months. So, there is a certain amount of volume in the repetitions and some of that can be replaced with dry fire, but some of it can't. You just have to put in the time and put in the reps with the rounds in order to make it happen. And so you just continue to practice videotaping yourself, watching your videos. If you know what Nona looks like when he gets on the gun, or what Blowers looks like, or what Fish looks like, or what D4 looks like. If you know what these guys look like when they get on the gun, and you videotape yourself, and you look like a fucking wet fish flopping around on the dock, and you don't look anything like them, well, that's why your target doesn't look anything like them, and your shot timer doesn't look anything like them. You have to be able to replicate what right looks like, and that takes time and rounds. So I'm getting my groove back slowly, but in just 8 months of not practicing religiously, I my skill set dropped off exponentially from where it was when my skill set mattered, when people's lives were on the line based upon my skill set. I'm retired now. The only person's life on the line is mine, possibly my family's. and I'm good enough. I'm like drunk man on fire. Even this slow, I'm still faster than most. But as I'm starting to train these guys that do still have people's lives on the line, I owe it to them to be able to bring it like I could when I had the same job. So that's why it's time to go back, into student mode. And frankly, I'm shooting 3 to 4 times a week, 1,000 rounds a week right now to get where it needs to be. Uh, that's the inconvenient truth. I can put a price on proficiency, so I know that sucks, and I wish I had better. I wish I had a better answer for you. But you can be 90% with a lot less effort. It's the last 10% that sucks. The first 90% is pretty easy. You can do it with some dry fire, little self-diagnostic feedback. You'd be fine. But that last 10% is a motherfucker. So, who's my favorite author and what book have I enjoyed the most? Wow. My dad got me into Stephen King, and I've read I read most of his stuff. Uh, some of it I liked more than others. Obviously, I was a fan of the Dark Tower series. I liked The Stand. I thought The Stand was pretty good. Um, I think The Long Walk is by far my favorite short story that King has ever done. Um, I like a lot of the cool guy tactical classics. Uh, Starship Troopers is another one of my favorite reads. Um, uh, I read Clancy when I was a kid, um, and then another author that I really really liked. Uh, that was very very much of the Clancy genre. When Clancy was writing, when I first started reading his stuff, he was kind of naval focused. And this other guy was considered to be the land equivalent to Clancy, and his name was Harold Coyle. He's a former Army mechanized um, officer guy, and he did a book called Team Yankee. The Cold War was still a thing, so right about the time that Red Storm Rising came out, which is my favorite book from Clancy, by the way. Team Yankee came out, and Team Yankee was about an infantry armor combined team, a company level team, defending the gap against the Russians, and it was a fictional account of what that Third World War in Europe of the Soviet Union trying to push the United States into the ocean before the Reforger package could arrive, what that would look like, and Coyle uh, broke it down in very, very much at the tactical level. And he did several books, uh, but he started getting PC before it was cool, writing about female infantry officers and a bunch of other craziness. And he kind of drifted out of his lane. See, there's another one. Larry Bond was another techno thriller writer, that a guy that I liked from when I was a kid. He wrote one about the Koreans coming across the DMZ. That was very very good. And then he did a follow-on book to that uh, that took place in South Africa. And the 75th Ranger Regiment went into South Africa to try to secure their nuclear arsenal after a coup, and they conducted a airborne assault on the Pendabla nuclear weapons facility in South Africa. That was a pretty good book as well. I'm sure there's some others out there. I just, I forget them, and I don't get to read as much as I used to. Do the cords on my Silinx, which I'm wearing right now, by the way, do they tangle with glasses and/or hats? No, they do not. Uh, the Clarius comes with these routing dealios, and so they go right behind the ear, and then I've got mine cinched up under the chin. So there's really nothing for the arms of my glasses or anything or my hat to get tangled with. They sit right there. They're the lowest thing, then the stem of my glasses, and then my hat over that. Kip Foreman, have I made any adjustments to my instructor belt? Okay, yes, I have. So, Jake from Aries Gear is a buddy of mine. And Jake, what he did essentially when he made his instructor belt is he took the same design and materials for the Aries Gear belts that, the Ranger belts and all that. He did that to make the inner belt for his inner outer belt series. So this is double stitched, super rigid, scuba webbing, whatever. So this in and of itself could hold all the ammunition pouches and holsters that you wanted. If you decided that you wanted to do a dedicated belt, looped into the belt loops with the pouches, staggered like we would in the firehouse concept where you've got your pants all rigged up like we talked about in a previous video. Problem with that is that this thing sticks out where it wraps over. You see you've got 4 layers now, double layer belt. And then I had a duty belt that also sandwiched over. So at the 12 o'clock where the plastic Cobra buckley thing was, there was a lot of bulk sticking out straight to the front of that design, more than I kind of liked. So somebody sent me a blue alpha, which is like a Ronin-ish style inner outer belt with a Molly attachment on it, and I'm going to probably set up that Molly thing for a certain tactical low-vis skill set that rig kind of low vis urban assault thing that I've got a need for. But the blue alpha belt was not as beefy as this, so I'm still using my Aries Gear outer belt. I've just decided to use the blue alpha inner belt to reduce the overall bulk, and I'm going to use the this Aries Gear. It's going to go into one of my firefighter pants setups. I'll route this thing through the belt loops on a set of cries and throw some pouches on that and just have that thing set up for grab and go. Next question. Would I Jonathan Kirch, would I recommend a Belgian Malinois for a pet? No, I would not. Misha is a very, very special animal. John Knipe said Misha is the dog that will convince somebody that they should get a Mal, and then that Mal will fucking destroy their life. Misha does not have any of the anxiety, destruction issues that are standard Mal. If you leave a regular Malinois in your car, they're going to eat your seat backs because you left them in the car. If you leave a Malinois at home and not in a locked metal box, they are going to eat your couch because you left them. And they're pissed off at you. Like, oh, you want to leave me and go to the movies without me? Fuck you. I'm going to eat your couch. And that's if you can keep them from biting other animals and human beings inadvertently. So I am extremely blessed that I have a Mal who has a lot of anxiety issues, but shows absolute complete ambivalence to other animals. She doesn't bark, growl. She's not dog aggressive. She isn't overly protective. But she's also not a protection dog. So she's never been raised. She's never hit a bite sleeve her entire life. she was bred once her trainer and breeder saw that she had anxiety issues, that she was not going to be suitable for work. He immediately started training her to be a service animal and a companion. So that sweetheart has never, ever, 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 ever been trained to bite somebody. That being said, she's bitten 3 people. She gave my dog sitter 27 stitches playing ball, completely accidentally, just because she wasn't tooth aware about what she was going and what she was doing. And she went for the ball, and dog sitter went for the ball, and she snaggle toothed the back of the dog sitter's hand and laid her open across the tendons back here with just not a single mark on the inside. Completely open mouth, just raked her across the back of the hand, 27 stitches. And she bit 2 kids, but that was before I ever had her, when she was a puppy. And people allowed their child to get too close to her and pulling her tail and her ears and shit like that. So that's why she has a sign that says "Do not pet." That's a disclaimer to keep children away from her. But she's a great companion. But that breed is just, man, they're on a whole nother level, man. Mals are on a whole nother level. So uh, this episode is brought to you by Soulless Ginger Monster. All right. Any plans in the near future for a video on overcoming the flinchies and improving trigger control? Man, I shot over 1,000,000 rounds in my life. I still got a recoil anticipation flinch. I don't know what people want from me. I thought I've done a pretty good job of explaining pre-ignition movement of the gun, which in layman's terms we call flinching. It's a timing issue, and you have to figure out what you can do with your trigger finger in either how the speed or how you stack the trigger and trigger prep, or the type of trigger that you have to overcome whatever that telltale signal is that goes from your finger up the neural pathways to your brain that are letting your brain know, okay, I can feel it. This bitch is about to explode in my hands. And it is your brain's signal to your wrist to start mitigating the recoil of the weapon, but occurring before the gun actually goes bang, that causes the flinchies. That's what the flinchies are. So you've got to play your own mind games with yourself. Shrek is absolutely correct. Shrek and others are absolutely correct that all of the trick fuckery going on is between your firing finger, your brain, and your firing wrist. This hand plays no part in that neural pathway. So the tighter and more aggressive your support hand grip, the more that you can mitigate pre-ignition movement. You're literally flinching your firing grip into your support hand. So the more vice-like and stable your support hand grip, the less movement your pre-ignition movement will move the barrel of the weapon away from the bullseye prior to the bullet leaving it. So a flinch into a vice-like support hand grip might be an 8-ring, whereas that exact same flinch with a wet needle grip would have been all the way out in the white low left, a D ring if we want to talk IPSC target, whatever. So there's some different techniques, but that's all. There are other people that are like trigger prep's dumb. Once you start pulling the trigger, pull it all the way through. Ernie and Noner do it with double action pistols, for Christ's sake. There is nothing more flinchy-ish inspiring to me than a double action trigger pull. this big long thing, and it's up the hill, up the hill, up the hill, rolls right off the hill. And right about the time I'm at the crest of the hill, my body goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I can't shoot double action revolvers or double action pistols well at all as a result of that. So, I mean, there are other guys that have other thoughts about how to deal with pre-ignition movement of the firearm. You know, Shrek's got his thing. He doesn't think the trigger squeeze matters at all. I tend to prescribe to what he's saying about support hand grip, but I'm also a fan of, you know, hey, if this works and this other thing works, then why don't we just do both of those? Why can't I have a decent trigger squeeze and a good support hand grip and bring those together for a well integrated shot? So, yeah. Well, we could talk about the flinchy some more in a video, I guess, but that's it in a nutshell. It's something that's very personal to each one of us, and ball dummy is only going to take you so far. KKM or Victory First Barrels, which are better? Yes, they're both very good. I think that if I did some more formal training, I could probably find that one of the barrels likes a certain grain more than another barrel. But I haven't done that testing yet. So the Victory First barrels are shooting really well for me, and my buddy owns the company, and they're not very expensive. So, you know, I can give Jake props and get a really cheap barrel from Brownells, and it shoots straight. So, you know, I love KKM, but KKM's never given me any love. You know, where's the check for all the compensated Glock 19 barrels, which by the way they didn't fucking make until I asked them to. Where's the check for all the Roland Special barrels I sold KKM? Motherfuckers never give me a penny of money. So make good barrels, make really good barrels, but they never give me so much as a single free barrel or a check for anything. So there you go. Do I use a CERT pistol? No. What's my dry fire schedule like? Not as much as it should be. I used to dry fire just working on my trigger squeeze. So like watching the sights, trigger prep, breaking it, trigger prep, breaking it, as opposed to dry firing from the aspect of jocking up and working gun manipulations and things like that. I do no gun manipulation dry fire whatsoever. Like no reloads, none of that currently. That's why my reloads look like asshole. But I did continue to dry fire using I borrowed a CERT pistol, and I was continuing to dry fire even when I wasn't shooting. So iron sight picture, sight alignment, maintaining sight picture and sight alignment, pulling the trigger straight to the rear, that type of stuff. I used to do, 30 minutes to an hour a day. I've kind of slacked off on that. I'm planning on getting a Mantis, so I'll probably be incorporating that back into my life. But right now, with me shooting, 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, I don't need to dry fire right now because I've got the time. I'm putting the time in with live rounds. So when I have to come off of that, either when the ammo runs out or I start getting busy again, I'll probably have to go back to. I'll probably have to replace my lost live fire training time with more dry fire. Copping a 34, dumb idea. So somebody else is going to ask. Keld below asks about why I'm not running a comp on my G17. G17, G34 Some people's Roland um, couldn't handle 115 grain training ammo. So if I had a duty gun like a Glock 17, would I consider comping it because it was going to run duty ammo to shoot flatter? Yes, I would consider that. But as like an instructor, trainer, range guy, I've got to be able to, when the host is providing ammo, I got to have a pistol that's going to run when I show up and it's 115 Blazer Brass or 115 Winchester White Box or whatever. And for my Roland Special, it wasn't running right there on the ragged edge. I didn't have malfunction issues shooting 115 grain, training ammo. I never had an issue with that. Uh, the bigger the gun, the more mass, the other issues, the springs, all that. When you start doing that, you're getting closer and closer and closer to the edge. When you're shooting a Glock 34 with a comp on it, like the brass, like it rolls out and falls out of the gun almost. And you're you're pushing too close, in my opinion, to being off the res. And um, I don't play recoil spring games with the Glock. Uh, others do. I played that game with 1911s, but I'm carrying a Glock so that I don't have to play 1911 games. It's not an enthusiast pistol like the 1911 frames are. I'm going back into that world with my Nighthawk, and I know that I'm going to have to get back on top of paying attention to my round counts and spring replacement and things like that. But what spring do I run on my Glock? The captured one that came with the motherfucker. I don't even know how many pounds that is. So this idea of tungsten rods and adjustable springs on a $400 plastic gun, and I know you guys are like, bitch, ain't none of your Glocks $400 in plastic. But the I don't just modify to modify. I modify to increase performance, and I think that the mass of the Glock 34 keeps the recoil extremely manageable. I'm shooting my 17 now. It's not optimal. I could probably shoot a comp 19 or a full size 34 and have better splits than the 17, which is right there in the middle. But I'm not willing to put a compensator on it quite yet. Because I don't have a need. I don't have a need to, and I'm not going to be shooting duty ammo. Man, if I was firing 147 HST all the time, I work for a department that my carry ammo was my training ammo. Yeah, I'd put a comp on that thing. Put a comp on that thing and run it flat like a sewing machine all day long. I did just buy. I've got a couple old 40s that I'm getting out of the 40 caliber game. So I got a Glock 22 that's comped right now. I just ordered a 9 mil replacement barrel for that, so that would, in a sense, be a 17 with a comp, and it's got a micro T on the slide too. So we'll see if that thing can run. We'll see. We'll see if I can shoot some Winchester white box through a Glock 22 with a 9 mil conversion barrel, a compensator, and a fucking aim point to add a little mass to that thing. I don't think it'll run. All right. Next question. Dano, how can someone best install the Deadly Force switch in themselves and influence its formation in others in a team environment? Um, so the military is obviously proven that uh, brainwashing techniques can work, but they can only work on those that want to be helped or whatever. Uh, you're all if you like your conscientious objectors. They go into that. What makes the grass grow? Blood mixed with mud. You know, Killahaji drill sergeant Killahaji, and it's revolting to them. It's you can't make someone go against their hardwired DNA. And so those that are true pacifists, that are have a true aversion to taking another person's life, are not susceptible to that. It's the ones that are kind of like, hey man, I'm not a sociopath, but I've never really thought about having to kill someone before. Those are the ones that through that type of group programming, you can convince them that taking a motherfucker's soul is a good idea. Um, and you basically have to harp on it, and it's very hokey, especially to people that have natural sociopathic tendencies, because like these people are like faking the funk. They're like faking it till they make it. And it's like, hey man, if you have to tell yourself that stabbing somebody in the neck is cool and whatever, you obviously aren't down with stabbing somebody in the fucking neck. Uh, and it's laughable to those that taking another human being's life is is more natural, more primal for them. They laugh at the whole rah 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 hoo 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 portion of building up a warrior's mindset, uh, because they quietly are down with the sickness anyway. They don't need to stand around on a parade field with 100 other guys with pugil sticks and say oorah oorah, 3 bags full. They they're going to do what they need to do when the time comes. Um, so you force on force training, cartoon targets, um, all of that, all of that mental reinforcement, it all works. But throughout the process, you can tell, if you pay attention, you can tell who is got fundamental issues with what's going on. And if they have an aversion to killing, with enough programming, you can convince them to take a motherfucker's soul, but they are going to be a complete PTS shit show afterwards. So if you don't want to have to deal with a whiny crying bitch about like, oh, I killed somebody, man, then identify that person like beforehand, during the process, and and uh, and self-select, or get them to self-select, and opt out of whatever situation you're in that requires them to be able to use deadly force. Keeps them from being a total nut job afterwards, and you'll find somebody else that's going to drop the hammer when the time comes. Thoughts on leadership and what makes a good combat leader. um, so I've had the privilege of all kinds of combat leaders. I've had combat leaders that were very cerebral, um, dudes like Stanley McChrystal, that were very just like on a whole nother level about thinking, about how they think, what their thoughts were on waging war or whatever. Um, those guys are very few and far between, because uh, you know so like Dave Petraeus, another very cerebral leader. Uh, a lot of those cerebral guys are really awesome at the strategic level or the operational level of war. Uh, Not all of them can make it happen down at the tactical level of war. Uh, so you know, McChrystal, when he was a lieutenant colonel, he was out in the box at JRTC during this legendary rotation that has never happened before or since. Uh, and he took all of 2nd Ranger Battalion and broke them up into squads and had them disperse out into the battle space. He decided to fight fire with fire. So he forewent all American infantry tactics of mass and platoon level operations and all that bullshit, and he kicked individual rifle squads with attached machine guns out into sectors in the box, and the OPFOR had nowhere to go. Everywhere they went, they bumped into another squad, and then as they got into contact, other squads came and enveloped them from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters away, and it completely threw the OPFOR off their tempo, and they attrited the entire 509th Battalion in the first 48 hours that they were in the box, which had never been done before. The kill ratio of OPFOR to Blue 4 is normally 1 OPFOR killed for every 7 Blue 4 killed, and the 2nd Ranger Battalion held the 509 to a 1-to-1 kill ratio that rotation. Anyway, Stan's walking through the woods with his battalion TAC, and a rocket position started firing on his guys, and he could actually hear the rocket simulators launching a couple of 100 meters away, and there were no squads available. And so he made all of his lieutenants and radio operators and whatever drop rucksacks, and they ran 600 or 800 meters through the woods and assaulted this position. Some staff captains, a major, a lieutenant colonel, a master sergeant, a sergeant major, and about 9 Spec 4 RTOs and lieutenants. And they just rolled up out of the woods and just smoked all these dudes, right? So that's an example of a cerebral leader that is also down with the sickness. Was able to get his bayonet stick in. And then there's other guys. There are other great combat leaders that are basically individual warriors that are so good at the craft of being an individual warrior, they just kind of naturally morph into helping other people be good individual warriors. And I liked those guys too. For lower level tactical leaders like non-commissioned officers, those were my favorites. Like, hey, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna shoot some dudes in the face. You guys want to come with me? Okay, I guess that's a technique for platoon level leadership. I'm gonna go kill some people. If you guys, the platoon, want to come with me and go kill some people too, let's go. Follow me, kind of thing. It's just a matter of when you need those personalities and where they fit into the whole big scheme of things. A lot of times, if you've got a cerebral guy, you need a knuckle dragger to offset that personality. And if you've got a big knuckle dragger, sometimes you need a cerebral dude to bring him back into the fold. Like, hey man, I know you want to go in there and cleave a dude's head in with a tomahawk or whatever, but you're in charge of like 30 dudes right now. So yeah, no, you can't be the number one guy in the breach, that kind of thing. So be a knuckle dragger or be cerebral. Just don't be too much of any one thing. Any new products that I'm excited about? Crye's new line of fabrics, not patterns, but the fabrics, and the fact that they've expanded them out into new color patterns are pretty cool. I'm not sold on the G4 cut, the internal pockets and all of that. I'm not. I'm going to have to get a set and wear them for a while before I can say that G4 is the way, because G3 is a damn good outfit. But I like how they've decided to make a jungle type tropical uniform and then like a desert arid like combat uniform, and then they're offering them in the color patterns that are associated with each. I thought that was pretty cool. I wish I had gotten over to see that stuff in person in at Sophic. Unfortunately, I was working and I did not get a chance to walk around and uh, see a bunch of the stuff at Sophic. Um, Magpul's new bipod is the shit. Chalk me up for yes, please. Magpul's bipod is fucking awesome. Am I excited about the new Sicario movie? I think they're gonna fuck it up. Favorite war movie? Favorite war movie? I don't know. Uh, war movies kind of lost a lot of luster for me once I joined the military. I'll tell you that I can't stand Black Hawk Down. Uh, and it's just it's when you know the truth, but truth isn't sexy enough for Hollywood, and so they fuck it up. It's really upsetting. And I mean, when you look at Black Hawk Down, they had four 160th helicopters with crews and an entire platoon of fucking Rangers from 3rd Ranger Battalion, and they still managed to fucking bend that movie over and cornhole it. I don't understand it. Uh, you know, um, and Hollywood is not our friend. At the end of the day, Hollywood's not our friend, and these people are making movies about my friends getting killed, and they don't even honor them with telling the story accurately. And so, eh, I got nothing. It's Memorial Day weekend. Yay. Thoughts on SIG MCX, particularly the Rattler, and is there still a role for the MP5 in military and law enforcement? The MP5 SD, yes. I still, the exception of a couple of blackouts that are out there, there's still not a suppressed uh, weapon that can do what the MP5 can do, as well as the MP5 SD can do it. It really is a piece of a marvel of the German engineering. So the MP5 SD, I think, is still going to have some life for a few more years. Although that 300 blackout, man, it's pretty gnarly in doing the MP5's job better than the MP5's. Sig, man, I'm gonna try not to lose my shit. But let's just say my observations with what SIG can produce in a prototype and in a design, and then what they choose to produce coming off of an assembly line are not always the same thing. So, uh, and that is not an engineer problem. That is a management problem. There is nothing wrong with the design of the MCX. There are decisions that are made in this industry to use substandard materials and to cut corners in quality control that result in an inconsistent production line. There. Hooked on any video games? No. I started State of Decay 2 and got into a little thing with another enclave of humans. Thought I had it all worked out. Turned my back on them, and they hacked up my favorite character with all the attributes and stars that I had been spending hours developing. And game pissed me off, and I turned it off because you play for keeps in the zombie apocalypse. So I'll probably go back and revisit it. But as of right now, I'm mad. My 6-person enclave is down to 4 after one of my other people went out to grab a resupply bundle and got ripped in half by a fucking zombie or something. So my community is starving, running low on ammunition. Zombie apocalypse is pretty horrible. So, all right, guys, I think that covers all of the pre-made questions. So now we will go to chat and see what you guys have been saying. Well, I've been rambling here for the last hour. 3.25 dot on RMRs, not 6.5. Why? Because I can turn up a 3.25 dot and make it bloom if I want easier dot acquisition, but you cannot dim a 6.5 MOA dot and shoot fucking steel at 100 yards. So the 6.5 absolutely loses out in the precision game, whereas the 3.25 can do both. Gavin, I'm going out to Arizona later on this year. I'm gonna do in November. I'm doing a 2 or 3 day class in Phoenix. It should be posting to the ODS website end of next week. I'm going back. I'm going back to North Carolina on Wednesday. I'll be sitting down, passing off the information about that course, the Phoenix course, and they should build it up on their website, and there'll be a link to pay on the ODS website to enroll in the Phoenix class. And when you sign up and pay at checkout, they'll send a confirmation email with the receipt, and then that should have the welcome letter, which will give you packing list, round count, directions to the range, and hotels in the area. Dick Marcinko books. No, I do not enjoy reading Dick Marcinko books. Do I prefer teaching fundamentals or skills and techniques? Due to my background, I have had more experience teaching people that knew their way around a firearm. So improving upon one's fundamentals with additional drills and skills and whatever. But people that have taken my class have also said that they've gotten benefit out of me giving my take on the fundamentals. Sometimes when somebody says something, it just doesn't resonate, and somebody else can say the exact same fundamental but explain it slightly different, and it becomes a light bulb moment. I've had that happen several times with multiple instructors. where, excuse me, instructor A has said something, instructor B has said something, instructor C said it or demonstrated it through a drill or whatever, and I had a light bulb moment. And all three of them said the same thing, but I didn't get it until the third guy told it to me. So I've been told that that even people that have taken classes with my friends, that sometimes it's just easier, that I have a way of explaining stuff that it's just easier for people to understand or whatever. I don't know. How did I balance my family life with kicking indoors and doing stuff for the empire? Um, I didn't. I didn't. I was a bad husband. I was a bad father. Um, I essentially thought that I died during 9/11, and I was on a suicide mission. And I was just going to go over there and kill people until I got struck down, and they just suck. So I'm still alive. Uh, I saw my kids 2, maybe 3 times a year. Uh, for the majority of the war. Um, so I'm part of me is glad that I'm retired because I'm trying to rebuild my relationship with my children. My daughter was down. My daughter was down with the sickness. I brainwashed her early, and so she was down with the jihad. She understood. My youngest son did not. He just graduated high school last week, and he and I have a very tenuous relationship because I've been gone for his entire life. So now I've got this young man that I need to get to know. Glock sight recommendations: Dawson adjustables, Trijicon RMRs, RMR 06s to be exact. Yes, Matt Dropco, I'm going to get a Mantis X and I'm going to incorporate it into dry fire training. On Glocks or M&Ps, should I pull the trigger all the way back to the rear before letting it forward again to reset, or pull it just far enough for it to go bang and then reset? That's kind of a factor of how fast you're pulling the trigger. So as soon as it goes off, the gun's going to recoil. So if you are trying to shoot it fast, you're going to be pushing through the wall, and you're probably going to bottom it out while it's coming up, and then coming out, coming up, coming out, coming up, coming out. But if you are trying to break a shot, as soon as the sear goes, you're not going to get it the rest of the way. As soon as the sear goes, the gun's going to kick, and you're going to be going back out to reset. So it's a factor of how hard you're mashing on the trigger, if that makes any sense. What gear do I have for Mish? I've got her on a metal choker. She doesn't like Kongs. I'm using 215 gear leashes. All of her toys are Chuck It balls. I've got glow in the dark ones that whistle for playing on land at night, and then all the rest of them are fully sealed waterproof. I was running large balls, uh, but they were exasperating my tendonitis in my arms between shooting and throwing with her for an hour every day. The weight and the heft of the balls, in order to get them out there, I was having to apply much more force and extension, and it was really exasperating the tennis elbow, the tendonitis in my arms. So I switched to a size medium ball, which is still plenty big enough to fit in her suck hole, but I can throw it a lot further with less force. So I don't have to death grip the chuck it wand. I can hold it a little bit more and kind of give it more of a wrist flick to get it out there, and it's reduced the swelling in my tendonitis in my elbows. Trying to hold off on having to get tendon surgery in my arms. And then I've got a pop out dog bowl that I carry on my person, and then training aids. She's got a Garmin correction collar, which I only put on her during certain events, like if I was going to take her to a dog park or something where I was going to have her off leash, and I need to be able to call her back for some reason, then I'll have the Garmin e-collar. Can I talk about my long range experience? Yeah, I was a sniper for 5 years in my last unit, and I was a sniper section leader in the 82nd back in the late 90s. That being said, I hate it. Can't stand long gun. But I've run 338s, 300s, 7.62 guns, bolt guns, gas guns. Um, you know, I the new Magpul chassis has got me thinking about building up a gas gun or building up a bolt gun again. That and the Q Fix. I don't own a bolt gun right now. I I became firmly convinced in my time as a sniper that there was not a whole lot that I couldn't kill with the 16-inch SR. Uh, and then all the rest of that was just a bunch of heavy bullshit. Um, so I'm going to be getting. I've owned one 7.62 gun right now. I've got a 16-inch OBR, one of the originals that works. Um, it's a fucking tack driver, but I gave away my, or I didn't give away. I traded my Schmidt Bender PM2 4-16 with H37 reticle. I gave that to, or traded that to John Knight because he was doing a Mark 11 replica build for his office, and he's supposed to give me a loopy Mark 6 3-18 with a trimmer in it to put back on that OBR. But I'll probably end up getting an SR25 this year. A couple of them, actually, I think. When I say this year, probably 2019. FY 2019. I'm gonna end up getting a 16-inch K gun, and then I might get a 14 and a half pinned heavy metal upper for my gun also. So I might get back into belly shooting. Who knows? I didn't have the patience to be a good sniper. Uh, the mission, the tactical mission, shooting long range and everything, that was fine, but the tactical mission of sniping is just fucking dumb. Um, laying in a hole, shitting in a bag for 3 days, reporting on a target just to watch somebody else fly in, jump off a helicopter, shoot everybody in the face that you've been looking at for 3 days, and then run back out, jump on the helicopter and fly away, and know that, while you were pooping in a bag, they were playing Xbox and fucking, watching chicks on the stripper pole or whatever. It doesn't pay to be a sniper. So, got to get that berserker life for sure. Josh Gilman, white light and night vision. No, all I said was I only use Surefire gun lights, and uh, dual tube night vision is personal preference based on how you want to use it. The Mod 3 has a removable monocular if that's something that floats your boat. The DT-NVG rotates up away from your eyes so you can have one down and one up if that's something that floats your boat. And the Sentinel is uh, dual tube fixed and extremely durable and very easy to manipulate. How to know when to move to a red dot on a pistol? You need to move to a red dot on a pistol, Joe Peacock. Whether you know it or not, you need to move to a red dot on a pistol. At some point, you have to, in order to maintain proficiency, just due to your eyes. For me, I knew that I had to when I got into a gunfight under nods and transitioned, and I had no way to aim my pistol with my nods down. That was a near life altering event. Did I dig 13 hours? Ooh. No, I did not dig 13 hours. Was my LBE all Alice, or did I have any older stuff thrown in? I ran, so the M56, I'm assuming, is like your NOM era LBE stuff. I ran the Cotton Duck NOM suspenders on my Alice pistol belt and pouch set. The Cotton Duck was softer, and the H suspenders were better than the Y suspenders that were issued with Alice gear. James Hickey, how do you feel about coming to Australia? I love Australia. I've been to Australia. I've done military exercises over there, and I've had a pretty bitchin' time in Australia before. I would live in Australia if you people had guns, but you don't. So I'm sorry. I would like put up with saltwater crocs and spiders that kill you and shit like that just to hang out in Australia because it's so awesome and the people are so great. But no guns, is fucking not happening. For someone trying to get into the firearms industry, do you think who you know is as important as what you know? Should one take courses or shoot matches to get their name out there? Okay, so if you're saying get into the firearms industry, if you're talking about you want to try to throw your hat in as a trainer, I think that it's absolutely who you know, uh, as far as being able to get into to get in into this business. But a lot of it has to do with just marketing yourself as well. There are some people that are internet famous that I'm like, holy shit, I cannot. How in the hell do you have 90,000 followers or whatever? Uh, there's a guy that I personally know. Like I didn't even know the dude had gotten out of the military and decided to be a trainer, you know. And next thing you know, I'm looking at Instagram and I'm like, holy fuck, man, this guy's being followed by everybody. And he wasn't all that, you know what I mean? But the guy can market himself. And at the end of the day, the 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 people that are out there, that the customer, if you will, is woefully ignorant. They don't care. They want to live vicariously through other people, and at the end of the day, the industry gets the fucking instructors that they deserve. The, with all of their embellishing, lying, made up fucking resumes and everything else, like that's the people that this industry deserves, because the students are looking for all the wrong things in their instructors, and so as long as there's a appetite out there, as long as the people writing the checks are completely fucking shallow and without substance, you're going to continue to get instructors that are shallow and without substance. The end. You have a Mark 18 and a SOCOM can. Sell the Mark 18 or keep it. You don't shoot it that much. If you don't shoot it that much, then your Mark 18 is probably good to go. If you do shoot it that much, then your Mark 18 is not going to last very long, especially suppressed. If you shot that Mark 18 upper with only the SOCOM can on it, and you fired any type of rapids, like 6 to 9 shot NSRs, ready up drills, things like that. Not full auto mag dumps, but just other than slow belly fire, whatever, you're going to burn that barrel out in less than 7,000 rounds. So that's a very short service life for an AR. I mean, there's freaking Knights guns that'll go 15,000 rounds, close to 20,000 rounds. That Mark 18, not so much. 77 JD 77 grain is not a self-defense round. People love 77 grain because it's accurate as fuck. But that is a target. That is a target round. Its terminal performance is pretty abysmal. I like any of the bonded 5.56 loads, any of your modern 5.56 self-defense ammo. Your Ranger, critical defense, TAP, any of your TSX or TTSX rounds. So your 50 grain Barnes, 70 grain Barnes, all of those bullets are all going to do really, really well against both intermediate barriers and terminal performance on humans as well, without any over penetration. Atom RMR mount. I do have an Atom slide, but I get all of my slides cut from ATEI. My Atom slide is got a plate for Aimpoint Micro. I have one of the original prototype Atoms for a Glock 22, and I've got a Glock 22 with an Aimpoint Micro T on it. But other than that, if I'm going to mount an RMR, I'm milling the slide. Crimson Trace IR grips. Okay. Why not? I'm not a fan of the Crimson Trace Glock laser. So, but Crimson Trace 1911 grips are freaking awesome, especially on the Rugers. The Rugers take 1911 grip panels. IR Crimson Trace on a suppressed Ruger pistol is some of the most fun that you can have with your pants on. You can do just epic levels of hood rat shit with that. Agent Garbo, yes, New Zealand is a fallback location. I have a couple. I can go pretty much anywhere in Central and South America with enough money. All gun laws are waiverable. El Jefe, Comandante, Presidente for life will write you a scrap of paper, and you're a white guy with fucking guns after that. So that's strictly a matter of just who you know. But outside of the Central South American third world, New Zealand is on the short list of places that I could fall back to. Would you do cowboy action if somebody got you a single action revolver and would I put a red dot on it? I would do cowboy action if I could just walk around with a fucking side by and just blast shit and reload it. My dad was a big cowboy guy. Uh, we played cops and robbers and soldier and stuff, but my dad's era it was all cowboys and Indians. And my dad was a Doc Holliday fan before it was cool. As a matter of fact, when he was a state trooper, he carried a sawed off side by shotgun under the seat of his patrol when they were allowed to carry their own long guns. In my journey from basic to retirement, how did my sense of humor change? Was there jokes that I found funny when I was green, but later could not understand how it was ever funny? No. Um, I think part of me died along the way. I think I was a much more cheerful person when I was younger, before the war. Uh, that innocence kind of went away. That doesn't mean that I'm not still that I can't still enjoy humor, but I definitely have a much darker uh, outlook now that I've seen evil. I've got a much different outlook on life and what human beings are capable of, and my scale of right and wrong has absolutely changed as well. My core value system about hey, if you did this, you're a good person, and if you did this, you're a bad person. That's all gone. That's all gone now. 416 barrel with the 416 profile barrel, which is a different barrel profile than an MR556. It is very thick and it can take a really good beating. Uh, um, I'd say an HK 416 10.3-inch barrel is probably good for 20,000 rounds. I'd say that's probably a good ballpark figure. I did have, don't ask me where I got it, but I did have a stainless steel uh, 416 barrel, and I killed it in 10,000 rounds. That was also mostly frangible ammunition that I shot through that gun. I deployed. And there wasn't a lot going on, and had a lot of MGM steel, and so I spent about 3 months downrange just blaze ops on steel up close at like 5 yards with my rifle, 5 yards, 7 yards, just working on speed, just straight speed, just burn downs. And I shot 10,000 rounds through my 416 in about right about 90 days. And I came home and they gauged my gun and they said it was fucking hot dog down the hallway. So I lost my stainless steel match barrel. That thing was holding sub MOA too, out of a piston gun at 100 yards. That barrel was a fucking tack driver, man. But alas, I fucked it up with some frange and a rapid firing schedule. Um, Mark 12 Mod 1 dinosaur, or still relevant? No, I like a good accurized. I mean, maybe not a Mark 12 Mod 1, but I like a good accurized 5.56 rifle. I've got a Hodge gun getting built right now with a 220 whatever wild, 224 wild or whatever proof barrel. So I bought the barrel from Proof. I had him deliver it to Hodge, and he's assembling the upper 16-inch intermediate length gas, uh, and that thing's going to be a fucking tack driver. And so, I'll probably I might even put a 3 to 18 on that. So the thing about these 5.56 platforms is you can get the accuracy, you can get better than 308 accuracy. You just run into external ballistics. So if you are shooting in no wind, and those guns will go 800, they'll go 800. But as soon as you start throwing wind calls in, because of the design of the bullet and the bullet weight, your wind calls end up being double what they are of 7.62. So at some point, if I'm getting 12 to 15 full value, I'm holding forever. And if you know your wind calls, if you can read the wind, if you got time to fucking plug some dope in AB or whatever, it's going to spit it out. You can hold and still get hits, but in a gunfight, nobody's got time. Nobody's got time for any of that. So it to me it ends up being a weight issue, like ammo wise. If I can get away with having an SPR, I'll take an SPR. If I can't, then I've got to go battle rifle. Um, Based upon the distance and the environmental conditions. There are just places where it's just windy as fuck all the time. And I would not carry an SPR in a place where the winds are routinely gusting over 10 knots because it gets that little 5.56 bullet, takes it off, takes it off for a run. So that's why everybody's trying to get better BC, better BC, better BC. You know, speaking of better BC, I'll probably get a 6.5 next year. Gavin, I don't have enough experience with the Hudson to have an opinion. Uh, Other than the weapon light problem. The gun seems to shoot really good. You know, it's just ergonomically, the flashlight industry is going to have to kick in to figure out how to deal with or interface with a platform like the Hudson, where you're not totally changing your grip to be able to interface with your controls or whatever. PEC 15 or D-ball for LEO work. PEC 15. Unless you're talking patrol rifle, there's some D-ball with some visible green that's pretty good. And in that case, the D-ball becomes much more utilitarian for patrol rifle compliance work than the PEC 15's weak ass, bitch ass red laser that they have on there. So in that patrol rifle instance, the D-ball's Viz is better than how shitty the D-ball is under IR, because the chances of a patrol officer needing their D-ball for nods work is minimal. So for however many times they would pull that thing out of the rack to gain compliance to somebody in a suspect with a gun, domestic with a gun, whatever situation, they're going to turn that green laser on, put it on somebody's chest, and tell them to get the fuck down way more than they're going to throw on a PVS 14 and a skull crusher and run around in the dark on perimeter work behind a house at night. What are my thoughts on Springfield Armory? It makes some of the best bone stock 1911s that you can get. They're very, very good consistency on their 1911 slide to frame fit. And I'd say they're probably my favorite production 1911 company out there. Did John Noveski make it for me? If you're talking about my 416 barrel, negative. Yes, but Maul for the win. Maul is obviously going to give you, even the C1 Plus is going to give you better IR capability than the D-ball, and a green laser capability that's just as good as the restricted D-ball's green laser. So, all right, guys, we're at an hour and 46. Need some more questions, or else we're going to go ahead and call it. This has been a pretty good one. We got 51 people coming in. We've had people coming in, coming out. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in. Best gloves. Oh, God, I hate gloves, Ghost Bear. SKD or the Velocity super minimalist gloves are what I like when I'm trying to protect my hands from abrasion. And OR for any of the OR liners for wintertime, but primarily I use a hand warmer, quarterback hand warmer, and no gloves or a set of light gloves even for the winter. I will pull security with my rifle hung right around my neck and my hands and my sleeve, because I can pull them out, get my hands on my rifle, and have the manual dexterity that I need to run that gun. So unless I'm in a place where the threat could be so unexpected that I don't even have time to pull my hands out of my sleeve, I will try to position myself in a vantage point where I can see potential threats, and then I will I'll keep my hands in my hand warmer with chemical hand warmers in there to keep my hands nice and toasty. So, and I've been doing that for several years. I also will pull security kneeling or standing before I pull security prone for the same reason. It's more effective and gives better screening within your sector. If you put a person in the prone, they tend to look straight forward and they're 40 degrees. But if you get them upright, they'll keep their head on a swivel, and you'll actually get 120 degrees of security out of the same guy. So I think making privates lay down and face in a certain direction is faux security. It looks good. It makes a leader feel good about what's going on, but it's not the most effective way to fucking identify an enemy outside of your perimeter. Did I ever play with quad tube NVGs, and if so, were they legit? Yes, I've been running. I was running some variation of quad tube NVGs since 2009. So I had 6-7 years under PNVGs or GPNVGs. Any desire to mess with an AK? Only when I'm clearing it or I kick it across the room. Any tips for single-handed use of a rifle? Yeah, try not to do that. Try not to do that. Any recommended program for National Guard? No, I mean, you have to have time with your weapon. There's a direct correlation between the most proficient people that I've seen in the profession of arms and the amount of access they have to their weapons first and then ranges second. So Mike Voigt used to say this because everybody would ask Mike Voigt because they knew that he trained a bunch of people. You know, he went overseas and trained with the Aussies and the Brits and German KSK and then obviously all these law enforcement entities in addition to his job. Standing up USPSA and being a professional competitor, and everybody wanted to know, hey, Mike, in all your travels, who are the best shooters, and he said bar none. It's the Army guys out of Bragg, and he goes, the reason why is because of the range complex that they have. If you're in an organization that you don't have access to your weapons or the ability to go to a range, you're never going to be able to get to a level of proficiency. Even if you go and let's say you're a SEAL in SEAL Team fucking 3, right, at Virginia Beach, and or the odd guys, the left coast. I don't fucking pay attention to those guys. Anyway, you're a Little Creek-based Navy SEAL. You have to get into a vehicle and you have to go to this Navy SEAL training facility in at AP Hill, Virginia, and they've got barracks there or whatever, and then you can do live fires, you can shoot machine guns, you can shoot grenade launchers, you can do whatever. But in order to go there, you are not putting your head down on the pillow next to mama that night. That is a training deployment. You are getting in a vehicle and you are leaving your home station and you are going somewhere else and you are staying in a fucking barracks in order to shoot your gun. Motherfucking no-go. That is not how you become the most proficient fucking shooters on the planet. You cannot travel to fucking train. You have to be able to train where you are at if you want to be the fucking man. It's just the way that it is. I made that tomahawk on the wall at Warrior's Heart when I was going through therapy. That was one of the things that we did was woodworking and metalworking and things as a form of artistic therapy to work through some of our issues. That's a well-known therapy technique for traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, and things like that. So that's a railroad spike. I flattened out the head and curved the spike on the back, burn all the wood, and tapped the spike down in there, and lashed it all up and everything. So it's just a reminder of my experience last year. So, is there a practical reason to carry a Hawk Oconus? Yeah, absolutely. Tomahawks are great tools. You can pry open stuff with them, and cut stuff with them, and cleave stuff with them. They're good kit. I'd say they're just as good as a solid fixed blade field knife. I mean, 6 of one, half dozen the other kind of thing. Best boots, depending on what you are trying to do with those boots. I would say generally Salomon's. Salomon's do not hold up for like trekking. If you are going to be, in a really mountainous environment where you've got very sharp, jagged rock, you're gonna need something uh, that's got a more aggressive, stiffer sole, and get something that's going to give you some a little bit more ankle support. So I would go for like a Scarpa or a La Sportiva when I start getting up into that next level of Afghanistan above 6,000 feet kind of thing. That's where assault boots are kind of not what you want. I mean, unless you're gonna swap out assault boots like socks. There's nothing wrong with wearing a set of 4 GTX or whatever Solomons. You just realize they're not going to last more than about 90 days in that environment. And they're going to be shredded up, and you're going to have to get another set sit in. Ryan Mosier is asking about 22 pistols. I've been in a bunch of places that had access to 22 pistols. Almost all of them were Rugers. Um, but the Jews love those little Berettas in 25 and 22. Those things are pretty crazy. I've never seen a buck mark downrange, but I've heard good things about them as well. I've got a Surefire Rider can and no 22 pistol to put it on, so I need to decide whether I'm going to do like the Glock slide 22 thing, or whether I'm going to do a Ruger or a Buckmark or whatever. But I need to do a 22 pistol build with a dot and a laser on it. JD, I got your message. I'm going to respond back to that individually. There's nothing wrong with running a 5-inch SOCOM can on a 12.5-inch gun. I mean, there's guys that are running a 5-inch SOCOM cam on a 14.5-inch gun. Most people are running a 5-inch can on that gun. There's the Mini wasn't purchased, so they're stuck with the SOCOM can. The RC2. They don't have the SOCOM Mini available in the DoD, or not in any significant numbers. Do ACOGs work well with NVGs? No. ACOGs barely work well with the Mark I eyeball. The eye box is extremely tight and unforgiving on an ACOG. And there's tritium in there. So if you look through an ACOG, if you are able to line your knot up behind the ACOG, depending on the lighting conditions, the tritium can bloom out your NVGs. You'd have to ask Silinx. Ryan Mosier's asking about do the Silinx are my Silinx buds still working good? They absolutely are. But is there going to be a Bluetooth version? And that's a question to ask Silinx. I have no association or affiliation with those guys whatsoever. Ghost Bear, do you have an opinion on the dispute between the Navy and the Air Force stories on the Anaconda disaster? Yeah, I got an opinion. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna touch it right now. At the end of the day, I think that Kyle DeFore is an honorable guy, and out of respect for him, because he was associated with that element, I'm not going to I'm not going to go down that road. Like part of it honestly is I don't think that people that don't rate an opinion about what those men did on the battlefield. Decisions were made, right, wrong, or indifferent. Those decisions had second, third order consequences. You know, uh, I sent 3 kids home in a box, 3 boxes, as a result of decisions that were made by men, and I can identify by name. Like, you made a decision that resulted in those 3 people no longer being alive on planet Earth. But we were there on the ground in Afghanistan. Proper. We on the ground in Afghanistan, not me specifically on top of that mountain with my men that morning. It's unfortunate that our dirty laundry is out there. So it's unfortunate and a little bit disappointing. But Kyle and I talked offline. When I heard about the Medals of Honor in the first place, Kyle and I talked to one another, and I agreed with him that this is just something that the public didn't need to throw their opinion. You know, the internet. I frankly, I don't care what the internet's opinion is on this, because the internet wasn't fucking there. So. Kinetic Fundamentals wants to know what state I am based out of. I live on the East Coast and the West Coast. I maintain a safe house in North Carolina. I've got a vehicle and weapons and kit, and the ability to go up and down the East Coast, consulting and or training. And then I also live outside of Seattle for the majority of the time, in retirement with my lovely wife, and a truck with guns and kit. Any training on an AK? No, I do not plan on training on an AK. It's not my area of subject matter expertise. I think there's a lot of people that are diluting themselves because they're relying on the cult of personality of their followers, with their followers, to sell tickets. Like, oh, if you loved me in night vision, you'll love me in vehicle demolition derby tactics or whatever. And I'm not that guy. I'm not going to leave my lane to try to seize or grab a greater portion of the market share and take business away from other instructors that have entire POIs and an emphasis on areas that I'm not the man in. Why would I want to? Like, have I ever shot some dudes in and around cars? Sure. Would I want to have a vehicle tactics based POI? Why? Kyle Lamb teaches that shit. Dan Brokos teaches that shit. Will teaches that shit. Why? What the fuck am I going to teach you guys about fighting in and around cars? Yeah. And then I hit the pedal on the right. I ran over a dude, smashed his buddy into a parked minivan, and then shot him through the windshield. How do you put that into a POI? I don't fucking know. I just did it. So there's no upside to that for me. I know what I know, and people are going to come pay for me to teach them about what I know about and what I feel comfortable and what I have a desire to teach. I could whip out my applied ballistics and open up my old Todd Hodnett notes, and I could come up with my own variation of a theme, and I could be teaching long gun next month. 5 years of fucking sniper team experience in an army, in an army special operations unit. I got the resume to teach that shit. I don't give a fuck about sniping. I'd be a horrible sniper instructor. You got to love what you're teaching. You know what I mean? Dano, movement in any area, my default position is going to be muzzle down, butt stock in the shoulder. But, when I go upstairs, my muzzle's pointed up. If I'm moving around, if I'm forced to crowd cover with somebody else, and I'm having to swoop the gun all the way in and around them every time they're shifting their body position or whatever, I'm probably going to bring the gun up to a high ready so that I can snap it down, and I'm not flagging the dude that's down at my feet or whatever. It's the right technique for the right, whatever. But as a general rule, if I don't have shit fuck all in front of me, I'm muzzle down. Scoob is asking if we wanted to host me to teach class, what facilities am I looking for? Or what do you want me to teach you? I can teach, if it's pistol, I can teach you on a 25-meter indoor range. If it's 3 days pistol and rifle, I could if you got 100 yards, I can teach you 100 yards and in. If you got 50 yards, I can teach you 50 yards and in. If you only got 25 yards, it's probably not where you want to be learning a carbine class from. Everybody likes to shoot rifles at 5 and 7 yards for whatever fucking reason, but you've got to be able to get out and stretch those carbines because that's those assault rifles, because that's what they're good at. So if you got a range, if you got a 300-yard range, I'll take you out to 300 in a basic carbine class. I don't care. Again, I don't need to make up some fancy name. Special purpose rifle precision carbine development. No, shoot some assault rifles accurately class from Press Check Consulting. There you go. If it's going to be night vision based, I have to have a facility that will allow me to have at least 4 to 5 hours of darkness. So if you have nighttime noise restrictions where you can't shoot past 10 p.m., I can only go there if can only teach in a place where it's going to be dark at 5 p.m. So that means dead of winter, based on where you are. I've got to have at least 4 hours, 5 hours preferably. So here on the left coast, right out on the coast, it gets dark. Even in the middle of the winter, it gets dark at like 6. So that's only a 4-hour darkness class. And you still get 8 hours of training day. We just shoot guns during the daytime prior to it getting dark. So the time of year of when you're going to host based upon noise restrictions becomes a factor. If you're one of these, man, ain't no noise restriction where I'm at, we're a police range or we're out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, man, I'll come teach that shit in the middle of the summer. I don't give a fuck if it gets dark at 10 o'clock at night. We'll train from 10 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't give a fuck. But that is a range constriction. If I got less than 4 hours, you're getting less than 50% of the training day in the actual dark, which is what you're paying for, a night vision class. I feel pretty bad if I'm giving you a night vision class and you're getting 5 hours of daytime flat range and 3 hours of actual night vision. So, anybody other than Jedi post a pass on the no fail shot? Not that I know of. I don't think anybody else has posted a no fail shot video, but I'm not really paying attention either. It's not about me. It's about everybody going back and going, oh damn, I suck, and then like working harder at it. That's all. That drill was like a big troll for the internet or whatever. Like, hey man, can you do this? Don't tell me if you can do it or you can't. Just can you need to know, can you do it or you can't, and then go fix yourself. Go to sling. I've been using padded VTAC or skinny VTAC. I use skinny VTAC on all my low vis guns and padded VTAC on all my assault guns. But I'll tell you, lead faucet tacticals, Hypalon sling has got me like seriously interested. I might replace all my skinny VTACs with lead faucet tactical slings. Brokos is not only a good dude, but that sling's pretty badass in terms of its ability to constrict down really small and be secured on the side of the gun for like a patrol carbine or a truck gun or whatever. Can I talk about setting up and kitting out a vehicle? I will do some more videos on my SUV. It's still a work in progress. I got my Rago racks in the back now. I've got a North American Rescue Products aid bag in the back. I've got a jump starter in there and some other stuff. I'm slowly uh, building out my SUVs, kind of like ready room area. But it's all just thrown in there in the back. Once I get a good setup for it, I'll do a video on my truck. Show you guys what I got going on. Are Russia's new super weapons just scare tactics, political mongering, or a real threat? Any new tech threats on the horizon from other militaries? It's not just. I mean, yes, there's a lot of near peer weapon systems that are pretty crazy out there. China's build up in the South China Sea is pretty significant, but I don't think people understand the drone thing that's going on. Right now, there's a drone war essentially that is happening at the tactical level, and every day our unattended stuff is going out. General Thomas, the commander of SOCOM, testified somewhere and went on record the other day saying that Syria is the most, I don't know what word he used, largest, most challenging something, electromagnetic warfare environment on the planet right now. So even though we're not fighting the Russians, Russia is targeting using electromagnetic warfare, electronic warfare, trying to cut the link on drones and things like that. The ISIS is using drones. People are trying to hijack each other's drones. People are shooting drones down, trying to recover the media, recording devices off of drones. This drone warfare is here. It's here and it's here to stay. Personal drones, being able to throw things up and look in second, third story windows. All of the awesome things that technology is bringing, the attempts to counter that on the other side is right there. So there's this whole thing going on because the media coverage in Syria is non-existent. You're not hearing more about it, but there's crazy shit going on right now between our forces, uh, or the Kurds or whomever, and ISIS or regime forces backed by the Russians and everything. It's just a really weird, but very scary and exciting at the same time environment, because we're getting a little taste of what it would be like to poke the bear, to fuck around with a near peer adversary. We've been fighting the Sand People in Afghanistan, and we've had complete technological impunity, and now uh, our gadgets aren't working so hot all the time in every condition. So just something to think about. Do I care if somebody rocks an AK in one of my classes? No, I don't care if anybody. If somebody wants to bring an AK to one of my classes, unless it's something where I'm going to be using UTM, uh, and they need to be able to drop an AR bolt into their gun and shoot, UTM or simunition or whatever. I don't have a restriction on carrying an AR platform. Uh, Zero on a CQB rifle, zero on all my rifles. JD is either 100 or 200, depending on how I'm feeling on that day. If I've got a low power variable optic that's got a BDC on it, I'll probably zero it at 100. If I'm running a red dot where everything's going to be shot off holds, then I'll zero it at 200. Gavin, the class that I'm doing at Cowtown is going to be a night vision class later this year. Yeah, JD, T20 is going to be 200 meters. I prefer medium profile barrels over lightweight barrels for ARs, and the reason for that is suppressors. We're seeing a lot of these lightweight AR barrels. When you start throwing cans on them, the zero impact shift is greater than you would normally see on a rifle. So the pencil barrels don't like having the extra weight of a can thrown on the end of them. Gambit Zeta asks about canting the rifle versus shooting it straight up and down when using nods and lasers. I cant the rifle to the left. I cant the rifle inboard in an attempt to get the laser emitter over bore, so that I'm only holding for I'm only holding for elevation shift, not for windage shift. Do I run law folders? I don't have enough of them. Zach is a buddy of mine, but I've only got one. I've only got one gun with a law folder on it, and I plan on converting most of my other AR lowers to laws as I can afford to do so. Um, I've got a Dark Angel medical, Dano. I've got a Dark Angel medical IFAC on my instructor belt, and with a TQ on the side, and then I'll have a range aid bag that's going to have more trauma stuff on there. Ghost Bear, I'm a little bit confused about your question. What's the best way to get into drone development? Cyber warfare acquisitions, the private sector. Are you saying what's the best way to get these capabilities for the government? Is it the private sector? And if so, then yes, the commercial off the shelf is better. Anything tech, commercial off the shelf is better than government off the shelf, just because of the flash to bang time that government acquisition takes. Obsolescence is a real thing, and by the time you get a government off the shelf solution in a tech gadget, the gadget is completely obsolete by the time the government can make it happen. So the only way is to buy what's available right now, this second, and throw money at the problem, essentially. Uh, Aside from my KKM barrel and my grip adapter, anything else that I've done to my 34s? Raven Freya Magwell on some of them. Dawson adjustable sights, and then minus connector and maybe some tweaking, some polishing. Trigger polishing, maybe a spring replacement or two, but not the striker spring. Did I ever take a Hodge gun downrange? No, I've not taken a Hodge gun downrange. How far am I from releasing my grip adapter to the market? JD, that is a good question. I don't know how far I am from releasing it out on the market. I've got to find an OEM vendor that's willing to manufacture, and then I've got to get the packaging side of it down. So I'd probably say 6 months. Eric, have I ever considered shooting one of Carl's 2 gun matches? Yes, I have. Carl's got an invite out there. Landfair asked me as well, and yeah, I might go out there and play at some point. We were talking about doing something later on this year. You know. Where can you find Freya? They're impossible to find. Yeah, I don't know. If they're out of stock at Raven, I got nothing. I thought they just did a run of sterile Freyas not too long ago. Favorite cigar? Don't have a preference. I used to smoke cigars with the boys when I was still drinking, but I'm not a huge cigar guy. I mean, I'll definitely smoke when I'm smoking with other people, but I don't go out and buy my own. Flippy, Misha's foot healed up good. She's doing okay till the next time that I crush her. Cole Johnson book recommendations. I talked about some of my favorite books earlier. I don't have any recent reads that I would recommend. Scoob, how many energy drinks do I drink in a day? I hold myself to no more than 3 of these a day. Normally I drink 2. All right, maybe 3. The deal with shooting rifle It's not that I can at my range. I can. Rifle ammunition is just a whole lot more expensive, and rifle for me, rifle falls off a lot slower. Um, now I'm not gonna dazzle you guys with some sub 3 second 1 to 5 drill or whatever. Again, to me, fast carbine drills with a rifle, like videos showing blazing it down at 10 yards and in. To me, that's like fucking stupid human tricks with the handgun, shooting real fast at 3 to 5 yards. Like, okay, you're talking about tenths and hundredths of a second difference uh, at distances where if you don't flip that dude's switch off, that dude's going to hurt you back. So you're getting them out there fast, and you might shoot somebody a tenth of a second before they shoot you. But if you blow his liver out a tenth of a second before he draws and punches one right through the center of your sternum, you're still going to bleed out before he bleeds out. And he killed you after you killed him. So I'm not a huge fan of these like crazy fast speed drills with a rifle. Like it doesn't impress me that a guy can shoot an assault rifle really fast, really really up close. But people love to do it. People love to shoot assault rifle at 10 yards and in. They love it. I mean, I love it too. But you know, at a buck 50 a round, yeah, I shoot good ammo. At a buck 50 a round, I don't have a whole lot of time to be, dumping 1,000 rounds of rifle every other day or every third day like I'm doing with handgun right now. So that's why you haven't seen more rifle drills coming out of me. I can be counted on to hit what I'm shooting at with a rifle, and I can put it on somebody pretty fast. My shooting on the move is probably what is hurt by not being on the gun. That's where you really get to see someone's true talent with a rifle. If they can apply proper mechanical offset and put controlled pairs where they need to go in a CQB environment, to me that's rifle capability. Like that impresses me. And I've seen some just extremely talented guys with a carbine, but adding all of that together, wrapping all of that up, making the right tactical decision, moving their feet, processing targets in a row, engaging within the kill zone, identifying potential obstructions, guns, body parts, and then aiming to offset and miss those and get the rounds where they need to be, center mass, the thoracic cavity. You'd be surprised how many people don't do that good. But they won't slow the fuck down. Nope. Just like people shooting fast and missing a lot. It's the exact same thing with the rifle. That dude's fucking feet are going to go fast. He's going to move in that room like he's a ninja. Missing, throwing shots, fucking it up, shooting targets out of order. People get the cart before the horse, man. They don't understand that true capability is not sexy. It's really not. It's boringly consistent. Um, but like I said, you guys end up getting the instructors y'all deserve. Uh, Multi Fox. When wearing a chest rig or plate carrier, I run bullets to the belt buckle. Well, obviously this one's past the belt buckle, but so I run bullets facing the mag well of the weapon. When I go to the belt, they flip the other direction because of the orientation of my hand. So I beer can off the belt, and I reload uh, finger on the spine um, when I'm reloading off the chest rack or plate carrier. Good question. I like that. I like that. Same thing, or excuse me, not the same thing. Pistol, everything is bullet to the belt buckle. So my one pistol reload that's on my plate carrier, and then if I'm not wearing a plate carrier and I've got pistol reloads under my belt, they're all facing towards the belt buckle. Ooh, Ryan Mosier, Hajimod 2 versus Citizen Arms Gun. Ooh. I would be happy to take either one. I would say accuracy wise, they're close. Accuracy wise, they're close. I would be happy with either. I was actually just thinking the other day about I'm about having Citizen do me an AR pistol in 300. I'm thinking about it. I'm going to get a couple 300s this year, and they're all going to be sub 10 inch. All of them. 300 blackout over 10 inches is a fucking waste, in my opinion. Do I start the day with an orange sunrise monster? No, actually, I try to start the day with Death Wish coffee. I try to have 2 to 3 cups of coffee with butter, and that's my morning fat, so I can skip breakfast. It's appetite suppressant. Trying to get through the day, with an AM fast. So coffee helps me out with that. And then I'll drink Monsters midday, early afternoon. So there, Ghost Bear is asking about light machine gun / machine gun development and the fact that it seems to have stagnated or at least taken a back seat to finding a replacement for the M4. That's because the M4 is more fucked up. There is nothing wrong with any of our machine guns if the military just fucking bought them. You show me a devil dog that hates his M249, and I'll show you an M249 that was purchased by the United States Marine Corps, Department of the Navy, in 1992. And you wonder why, when you've got this 25-year-old machine gun receiver that you just keep putting lipstick on the pig. You wonder why it doesn't work anymore or whatever. The reality is that the 75th Ranger Regiment wanted to jump on board with the light assault machine gun. They also wanted to jump on board with the 338 Norma machine gun. And the regiment, because of its size, anytime the regiment wants to get into anytime the regiment wants to get into weapons procurement, if there is any way that they can validate the requirement as an infantry requirement, they try to do so, because then the service component is responsible for providing that equipment. So there's P11 and P2 money, MFP, Mike Foxtrot Papa. And MFP2 is service component money. MFP11 is SOCOM money. So if the 75th Ranger Regiment convinces the big army that they need a new saw, then the Ranger Regiment gets those saws for free. If the Ranger Regiment can't convince the big army that the big army needs a new saw, and they end up buying light machine guns, then United States Army Special Operations Command loses some of their money that was given down to them by U.S. Special Operations Command in Tampa for Special Operations peculiar equipment. That same finite pot of money also fixes 160th helicopters, buys new Polaris daggers for SF, like all there. It's partitioned for different programs. It's all the same fucking pot of money. So if uh, the Rangers get their machine guns and SF, uh, if the Rangers and SF get their machine guns free from Mother Army, then the $2.4 million for the you know 458 saws or whatever that they would need to field the Ranger Regiment and SF, that money can now go to buy two additional, three, four, five, six additional Dagger trucks for 19th SF Group, out of Utah. That's how that shit works. So um, there is a saw replacement requirement at the Maneuver Center of Excellence now, which came out of the light assault machine gun. Um, so there's a SOCOM initiative, and then there's a service component initiative, and then there's also the 300 Norma, 338 Norma. The General Dynamics larger than 7.62 belt fed, which will replace most of the 50 cals in the inventory. Uh, so those programs are ongoing. They're not stagnant. They're just long term programs because frankly, there's a lot of material development that still has to happen, and the requirements are constantly being bounced around in staffing. The Knights LAMG looks interesting. The Knights LAMG doesn't look interesting. It is badass. That gun is amazing. Uh, and there's probably not another manufacturer right now that has a production ready. There are not many manufacturers out there right now that have production ready light assault machine guns that are in the same class as the Knights LAMG. I believe so. Ghost Bear's asking that says he thinks that the LAMG is potentially a pipe dream, or he's asking, or is the government actually looking at picking it up? I will tell you that Knights had the Stoner LMG uh, up until a couple of years ago, and they had a couple of working machine guns that they had for over 10 years, that had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds shot through them, but there was nobody really shopping for a new saw, and that system was, I don't know, somewhere right under 12 pounds or whatever. The Stoner LAMG is the result of Knights hearing that there was a light machine gun requirement out there, and then spending their own R&D money to go back and look at their own design and then update it. All right, how much better can we make this thing after we haven't fucked with it for 10 or 15 years? And they were able to shave, a bunch more weight off of it. It went to Keymod and then went away from Keymod, and all of that. It takes time. You have to pay the engineers. You have to pay for materials to build pre-prototype guns. Knights just didn't wake up one day and say, "Fuck it, let's dust off the blueprints for a machine gun that we've had for 15 years and see how we can make it better." They were told. They were told by the United States government, um, you need to look at your Stoner LMG and how you can improve upon it. And they cut the thing down to sub 10 pounds. They shaved another 3 pounds off the weapon. I mean, who doesn't want a 5.56 millimeter belt fed machine gun that weighs less than 10 pounds dry? Who doesn't want that? A saw is 17.5 pounds empty. A Mark 46 is 13 and a half or 14 pounds empty. So you've got a gun that is 8 pounds lighter than than the M249 that it would replace. That's huge. So we'll see what happens. Flippy, what's my favorite HK gun? I gotta say it's the 416. I'm a big fan of the HK21 Echo, but the 416 is where it's at. Certainly not the MP7. Yeah, I gotta say it's the 416 hands down. 23 person asking about AR pistols. Man, SB or SNB or whatever, those dudes seem like they're the only ones in town, man. I am getting one done with their PDW device, and I'm getting one done with their A3 right now. So, and I've heard nothing but good things. The A3 gun's gonna have a law folder on it as well. So, and then I've got an 11.5-inch CAC upper that I just bought that I'll put on one of those, and then the other one I will probably split my time between my 10.3-inch chopped MR556 and my 12.5-inch Hodge. So that way I just don't have to dick around with any SBR stuff when I'm in classes. I can just transport the guns wherever and not have to send out my ATF letters of intent. Oh, look, I'm going to Phoenix. Here, ATF, I'm going to Phoenix. You know, it'll just, fuck it. Just take it, go wherever. Favorite low power variable optic for an AR, Schmidt, or excuse me, not Schmidt, Vortex Razor HD2 right now. That's that's it. That's my hotness. I want the new loophole, but it's not available yet. But I want one. If it works, it'll shave some weight off my gun. It'll shave some pounds off my rifle. Are miniguns being implemented into more units? No. SF has some miniguns. And 7.62, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Miniguns are very, very finicky. When they run, they fucking run. But when they don't, they're hard broke. There's no immediate action for a minigun. If a minigun goes down, that's 5 to 10 minutes with a flashlight and tools to fix. So favorite Surefire muzzle device. I am a fan of the closed tine, the open tine War Comp, and the closed tine 212 flash hider in Inconel. I have the closed tine War Comps. I haven't messed with them yet though. I've got a couple of them. I don't have them on any guns yet. Trent asks, have I ever used a 417? I did. Not accurate. Guns were, this is a long time ago. This is like 2007, 2008. The 417s were not not fucking accurate enough. Sent one off to AMU. AMU made it accurate, but the HK gun, not accurate. AMU 417 was pretty badass. But I mean, what's it do? It was heavy as it's heavy as balls. What's it doing that a SR25 can't do, other than potentially more reliable? Mercenary dude is asking me about the Kales. I looked through somebody's at the Shooter Symposium. So Fisher had been asking me about that thing. Like, dude, that thing's badass. It's the best ever. It's whatever. Been asking me or been pimping me about it over and over and over and over and over again. And I looked through one and I was just kind of like, I don't think it was that. It certainly wasn't better than the Vortex. It might have been a little bit lighter than the Vortex. But this is another thing that you got to watch out for. When you test out scopes, if you grab somebody else's rifle and you're having to do something funky with your head in order to get the eye box right, it can potentially give you the impression that the eye box is not forgiving as the eye box actually is. So when you set up a gun with the right eye relief for you, and then you're shouldering it consistently every time, that image is going to be right there for you. If you shoulder a gun and you've had to move your head and now you're fishing around looking for it, it's easier to boo-boo talk shit about a scope, but your only experience with that scope was set up for the eye relief of someone else. So I'm not going to say that that the Kales is a bad sight, or that its eye box was not as good as the Vortex. It seemed like it was a little bit tighter of an eye box than not eye relief, but forgiving of an eye box. The eye box did not seem as forgiving to me as that Vortex, but it was mounted to someone else's rifle. I literally took a student's rifle and said, "Oh, is that the Kales 1-6? Yeah. Hey, Fisher says I need to look at that. Give me your gun." And I looked through it. Red dot didn't seem like it could get quite as ridiculously bright as the Vortex, and the eye box did not seem like it was quite as forgiving. It had a nice little reticle with all kind of shit in it that I'm sure I could shoot some stuff way far away. And for an SPR reticle or for an SPR sight, it might have been great. But you guys remember Chuck's rule of variable optic gunfighting. 90%, 90+% of your time, unless you have that one variable power optic on an accurized 16-inch or greater than designated marksman's rifle AR, if you have it on a 14.5-inch or smaller gun, 90+% of the time, your $2,000 variable power optic is a really, really expensive, really, really heavy Aimpoint T2. But that other 10% of the time, it has amazing capability. So you're humping around the weight of the optic to get that 10% of the time really, really amazing capability. You just got to make sure that the other 90% of the time, that bitch can do Aimpoint work. And if it can't, dot ain't bright enough, eye box is fucking too tight, then you're compromising yourself 90% of the time in an effort to get 10% of performance. So your low power variable optic, more than any other factor, needs to be 1x red dot baller. And if it is not 1x red dot baller in your eyes, when you mount the gun, if you do not think that you are looking through fucking clear glass at a bad guy at absolute zero magnification, then you have the wrong low power variable optic. Night Force. Everybody's asking me about Night Force, the 1-8s. I didn't like the eye box. I didn't like the eye box on either one. Now, to get 8X on a designated marksman weapon, on a heavy metal weapon, on a battle rifle, absolutely. So I consider the both of the night forces to be in the same category as like the Leupold CQBSS, not in the same category as the Kales or the Vortex 1 to 6. It's just a different class of optic. I'm giving up some 1x capability and might even choose to use an offset red dot as my primary sighting system in order to get the capability that 1 to 8 night force provides. But the 1 to 8 night force is a standalone 1x red dot sight for doing CQB. Nope. Not going to put it on a 12.5-inch Hodge gun and fucking try to conduct a fucking drug warrant. Nope. Tyler is asking 12.5-inch gun versus 14.5-inch gun. I would only go shorter than 14.5 if you were planning on suppressing it. If you wanted to have a 12.5-inch gun with a suppressor as your home defense weapon, so you don't have time to put in ear pro or whatever, then that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily have an SBR just to work the corners and work the angles of my house or whatever. I've done plenty of CQB with a 14.5-inch rifle, and it's fine. It's fine for what you need it to do. So, look at the AR pistol versus SBR legal fucking hurdles that you've got to jump through, and unless you have a need to suppress it, I wouldn't even worry about it. 12.5-inch in a vehicle, or or dedicated assault work where you're having to dig corners, to as part of an assault element. Other than that, you really don't, you don't need it. A2 birdcage isn't bad, and it's very short. Especially for guys with like 16-inch guns, and then they end up with, war comps that are this long. It adds some shit to the rifle. It really does. The A2 birdcage has got great flash suppression. It's okay with defeating, muzzle rise. It doesn't work very good as a compensator, but as a flash hider, A2 birdcage. Excuse me. A2 birdcage isn't bad, guys. It's not bad. How is the 110 SR25? The 110 or the SR25? Two different guns, but as a general rule, they're both great guns. You'll hear all kinds of hate out there in the regular army about the 110, and I don't know what to say, man. I will tell you that I was privy to a test to replace the Mark 11, which is SR25. Mark 11 program of record for an organization. Their 20-inch gun was Mark 11's gotten through Crane, and so they went out and got a bunch of rifles from a bunch of different vendors. I think it was 6 or 7 different AR-10 style platforms. There was concern that the guns that Knights would deliver would be different than the ones that they would submit for a test. That's a common concern, that when you ask a vendor to submit rifles for an eval, that they give you the 5 best hand-built rifles that ever existed or whatever, and then that's not indicative of their actual quality control capability or whatever. Fortunately, the Army had the 110. So rather than go to Knights and say, give us 5 110s to test for this eval, they went to the depot and they snagged up 5 M110s that were slated to go to the 101st, and they sidetracked them for this eval. And those 5 M110s that were delivered to the Army right off the production line outshot all of the test guns submitted by all of the other manufacturers. So it's kind of hard to deny those test results. Like, fuck. Okay. So the 110 replaced the Mark 11 in that test for that organization for their 20-inch sniper rifle, because the fucking thing just performed. So when a dude from the sniper section of whatever 1st Infantry Division tries to tell me that the M110 is a fucking piece of shit, I just shake my head and I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you, man. Because when you have shot your Mark 110 against a LaRue OBR and a fucking GA Precision and an Armalite AR-10 and a POF and a fucking this and a that, and all of them whip your 110's ass, well, then maybe you can come back to me and tell me that the 110 is a piece of shit. But sounds to me like you're trying to compare your 110 to the M24 that it replaced. And now you're talking apples and oranges. You're talking semi-automatic gas gun versus bolt action. So what do you really know there, Corporal, Scout Platoon in a mechanized infantry division, Bravo 4 qualified sniper? What do you really know about how things work? So Jamie Rendon had a Mystery Ranch 3-day. Is that the tri-zip, Jamie? Because if it is, that's one of the best damn bags that I've ever used. I absolutely love the Mystery Ranch tri-zip. Mine is in my storage locker because it's multicam, and I'm using a Arc'teryx Card 30 because it's in Wolf, so I can walk around and not look, like a complete flaming tactical homosexual. But in terms of interface of the bag, the fact that the card zips down both sides and folds out so you can get to everything. The Mystery Ranch has the tri-zip, which essentially allows you to do the exact same thing. I consider both of those packs phenomenal for carrying just a little bit of gear. They're good stuff. For Joint Ops, what service did you hate working with? What countries did you hate working with? Which ones did you love working with? As a general rule, I dislike working with Marines. I dislike working with SEALs, but that goes without saying. As far as a service, the Marines were just so difficult to work with. culturally. It was talked about at like the strategic level that in Afghanistan, it was easier to do combined ops. Combined means more than one country, joint means more than one service. It was easier to conduct combined ops with NATO allies in Afghanistan than it was to conduct joint ops in Helmand province with the United States Marines. That even though they were also American, their processes and culture were harder to integrate than American Army working with the Polacks. And that's a pretty sad indictment of the United States Marine Corps that they're so difficult to work with, that dudes find working with other nations to be easier than working with that component of their own country. Who did I really like working with? Loved working with the Australians. Loved working with the Canadians, and I like the Brits too. So I would say the Aussies are probably my favorite. So, like George Bush said during one of the State of the Unions, Tony Blair was there, and he said, the United States has no closer ally than Great Britain. But then the Brits got fucking tired of fighting in Iraq, and they fucking pulled their people out or whatever. And I will tell you that the Aussies have been in every shit show that the United States has gotten into since forever. Nam, whatever. And those dudes have fought right alongside of us. And they're just good lads, man. I just really like working with the Aussies. All right, guys, we're 3 hours. Go ahead and call it. Appreciate all the questions. You guys are awesome today. It's Memorial Day weekend, which is a very, very hard time for me. So I appreciate you guys spending some time with me. Different people have different outlooks on Memorial Day. Obviously most civilians, whatever, but even veterans, a lot of veterans believe that, Memorial Day should be a time to celebrate, those that life and the fact that you're still alive. And I think that's a really positive outlook. I think it's a very hard outlook though, because you are commemorating all of these people, and I don't think very many of you guys probably have been around for all these years and not known somebody from your community, somebody you went to school with, whatever, that hasn't perished since 9/11 or whatever. But for some of us, the list is pretty long. And then, like, I think about when I start to think and get depressed, I think about a guy that's a one-term Marine, Lance Corporal from 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, that was in Ramadi in 05 or 06 or whenever, when their battalion took 70-something% killed or wounded in Ramadi. And I realized that there are platoons where they lost over half of their people. So, although I might have lost 20 or 30 friends along the way, they were sprinkled out over my military career. But this weekend, there are people that survived their experience of war, and they came home with less than half of the guys that they left with. Uh, and that's a terrible burden when you think about that. You think about their faces coming to you in the night when you're trying to sleep. 14, 15, 18 buddies. And you might have lost 5 or 6 of them at a time, screaming, beating on the armored glass of their MRAP as they're fucking engulfed in flame. Watching the skin peel off their face, that's Memorial Day for some people. So I'm good, but I am thinking about the other survivors out there that are maybe not as good on this weekend. There's a lot of burden carried, a lot of survivors' guilt carried by our surviving veterans. So think about those guys. If you're a religious person, have them in your prayers. And I appreciate you guys dialing in. And this is a good Q&A. You guys asked some really, really good questions. For you guys that are not my Patreon supporters, we try to do this once a week or every other week or whatever. I ask you if you thought the content was good, if you want to continue to hear these types of candid conversations or whatever, I encourage you to go ahead and sign up as a patron on my Patreon page, Press Check Consulting. This is my primary source of income in the industry right now. I put more effort into my patron supporters as a result of that. This is not just some side residual income, whatever. My supporters are amazing. We're a pretty tight tribe. Those guys reach out to me in private messages, whatever. I make myself very, very accessible to those that have stepped up and wanted to support me in this effort to have this type of back and forth interaction with my viewers. So if this is something that you want to be a part of or whatever, I ask you to go ahead and like and sign up and join the tribe. Come on board, man. We have a good time and we take care of each other. That's all I got. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys out there on the social media. Next stop for me is Ohio Tactical Officers Association Conference. If any of you guys are going to OTOA, make sure you come find me, even if you're not in my class. I'll be teaching no-fail hostage rescue pistol. So all those first responder SWAT types that want to learn consulting. You guys take care.